Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about solving factor equations, and I have two examples for you today. So this says to solve, and it's given us this big long equation, but if you look carefully at each piece, you'll see three things that are multiplying that equal 0. And if you look even further, you'll notice that each one of those things is already factored completely. So if a bunch of things multiply to be 0, then all of them, one of which has to be 0. So let's explore each of those options because that's all the values of x. So in this one, each of these factors could be equal to 0. Maybe it's 2x equals 0. Or maybe it's x squared minus 11 equals 0. Or maybe it's x squared plus 100 equals 0. So your first step in these, if each factor is completely factored, and it's equal to 0, you just set each factor equal to 0. And then we have three equations we just have to solve, and that will be all the values of x for this problem. So solving this one, if we just divide both sides by 2, we get x equals 0. This one, we can just add 11 to both sides, and then we get x squared equals 11. How do we undo squaring that x? By square rooting both sides. And we're going to get x equals plus or minus radical 11. Remember, when you square root a number, you have two outcomes, the plus and the minus. And since we don't know the square root of 11 and it's a prime number, we can't simplify that. So that's as far as we can go here. And then this one, we're going to subtract 100 from both sides. We get x squared equals negative 100. Same as this one. How do we undo squaring? By square rooting. Now, when you square root a negative, you're going to end up with an I in your answer, and the square root of 100 is 10. So this is x equals plus or minus 10i. So that's it. We're done. That's all the answers to this question. Let's just write it in a nicer form. When you have a list of things in math, you usually use brackets to make the list. So what are all my answers? Well, we have 0, radical 11, negative radical 11, 10i, and negative 10i. So I made my list of answers inside the brackets, and I put a comma between them. This is a list of all the answers to that question, meaning you could put any of these in for x, and you would make 0, which is what they want. So let's do one more example here. Same setup, but I do notice in this one, the x squared minus 81, that can be factored. If you'd like to factor, you can. You'll get the same outcome whether or not you factor. I'm going to factor it to make it be x plus 9, x minus 9. And let's bring everything else down. All right, just like the last question, all we have to do is there's 4 factors here that multiply to make 0, so one of them must be 0. So maybe 2x is equal to 0, maybe x plus 3 equals 0. Maybe x plus 9 equals 0. And I'm running out of room, so maybe x minus 9 equals 0. So solving all these will be a little easier than that. Divide both sides by 2. And maybe x is 0. I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, and we'd be done there. Maybe x is negative 3. I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides, and x is negative 9. And I'm going to add 9 to both sides, and x is positive 9. So our answers to this one, x equals 0, negative 3. And you don't have to list out, when you have pluses or minuses, you don't have to list them out separately. So for this one, I'm just going to put plus or minus 9. It's just whoever looks at this needs to realize there's actually 2 answers right there, plus 9 and minus 9. So there's our 4 answers to this question. So that was solving equations in factored form. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.